the journey begins. Like, what do I need to know when I'm 50? And I turned 40 now at April 30th. By the way, man, you're invited to the 40th thing. I got a fun challenge coming up for April. But man, it would be working probably a lot less. One of the studies I follow all the time is what folks say at end of life, and the number one thing it's as old as time. What folks say and why we can't buck this trend is I don't know. But they say, I wish I would have just worked less, done more. So I have to constantly remind myself that the work is always going to be there. And even right now, as I'm in this spot of where we're trying to just hold on as we grow, that report, that task, that anything that you're doing right now is a good chance that is not going to impact detrimentally what's going to happen right now, even tomorrow, probably not even next week. So shut it down. Enjoy the family. That's what I think my 50-year-old would tell myself right now.
Hello friends, family. My name is jjruescas. I am the host of your show Optimizandome, or Optimizing Me in English. A space where we invite top performers from different industries to learn from their stories, their habits, their routines, their successes, failures, and mostly to learn from their mindset. Our guest today is the epitome of personal transformation. He is the founder of Champ City, a company with a holistic approach to attainable fitness, training, body transformation, and overall wellness. The most surprising thing is that this man here was a completely different person a few years ago. Literally, you would not be able to recognize this man if you ran into him 6 years ago. At that time, his habits were taking him down a path hill that it was not good. And the worst part is that he truly believed that he was doing the right thing. Until in a heartbeat, everything changed, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Nowadays, his story inspires people who want to take a change in their own habits for good, not only here in Austin, Texas, but in different parts of the planet too. To the beat of It's Never Too Late, he rallies those ones who thought they were too old to transform themselves into their best version. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Eric Chen.
Hey,
Eric.
Man, what an introduction. Appreciate that. It is really nice to be sitting down with you.
It is my pleasure. Amen. So let's start. Let's start telling the introduction. Let's start with the audience.
Yeah.
Who is Eric Chen?
Yeah. I'm just your average dad, and with dreams like anyone else. Kind of trickled down a path that is not unique really to by most accounts in terms of what led me down there. And next thing you knew, I was in a bad spot, and a really bad spot. And it's not like when you mentioned in the introduction about how things changed on like a heartbeat. It's not like this is the only journey that I've been on back to my health. It's just the one that has finally worked for me. I've been on many journeys, I'd say, over the last probably 10 years to reclaim my health, but finding the right one really called upon me to not really follow what is out there, the information. Not that it's bad or not that it's great, it's just not really particularly for me. Mm-hmm. And it came down to just making things simple. And more or less wearing horse blinders on, right? And like horse race, just staying kind of committed and focused to right now. And if I could do that, magical things can happen. And once we, you know, made this big turnaround, it's like, wow, I'm almost 40 soon, and that, nothing crazy unique about me. If I could do it, anyone can. And that was it. So we decided to, you know what, we're gonna pay it forward.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, what is now your definition of a fitness and habits coach? Because that's basically what you are leading people.
It's almost like we've now sort of cast our net as more of like life coaches, and where we're looking at, because when you say fitness, it's physical and mental fitness, and that's a big component, if not the biggest component, to long-term change. And it's not just about what you see in the mirror, because anyone can follow a plan to the letter and achieve that. If they followed it, they can get to where they wanted to go. However, there still might be something on the inside that is just not right, and only you know that as a person. And so understanding who they are, understanding what their type of motivational DNA is, understanding what gets them to tick. It's a very personable person. You got to kind of know them in a sense to finally be able to anticipate their behavior and being able to hold them back when they're trying to speed up. That's half of my job. And that's where most folks continue to repeat the programs that they're on over and over and over again, because they just go too fast, too hard, just not recovering properly. So understanding who they are, and that's why we love our particular program, is that we really have the full spectrum of their health, up into the, like a provider of like a physician, and that's our next phase of our business as we grow into that. But outside of that, from Monday to Sunday, we kind of know what's going on with them. We understand the efforts that they're putting out there, how they're recovering. We're working on habits, but keeping it very simple. Not working on like a checklist of many different things, but actually looking at the science of how a habit is built and how it can be looped and stacked, but keeping it minimal and knowing how, when to push and when not to push. And so, in short, man, it's someone who just knows their people on the outside and the inside very well. And so far, our roster of clients are the ones who have related to my own personal story, because we've never advertised yet. We've only done organic social posting and just storytelling. And not everyone, but usually most folks are a little bit older, moms, dads, successful people in their own right, their business adventures. But there's something within them that is relatable to my own personal story, and who have come to us. And being able to work with them and understand that is awesome, and it's become what we're best at. We love like the folks who truly think that it's never too late, and downtrodden. I mean, you name the substance, you name like the behavior that they're involved in, those are our people. We love bringing them back. That's
So it's very interesting that you mentioned the behaviors that we are unconscious of many times, and how you help your community to start getting more conscious about them and actually making a decision if they want to keep engaging in that behavior. So now that is the present. Let me take us to the past. What led you into this path?
Yeah, man, to really know that, you got to go all the way back. After working with a professional therapist on some inner child trauma that had happened in the past, I've begun to unlock some things. And there's, I developed like an early abandonment style where it since like I never felt like I was good enough for much of anything in my early childhood days, um, and I always tried to outperform that and cope with that in ways that wasn't natural to who I was. And one of those things was develop a drinking habit very early on to um, either not think about that instance from early childhood to try to fit in better because I felt like that was the right thing I needed to do to be with these particular people for them to maybe like me being around them. And of course, that I have no business doing that, but I developed that habit very early on in life, and at 12, 13, 11 years old. And that led, like clockwork through all the way up until I left the military. And that was just like what I kind of liked doing a lot, because it was easy and it felt good. And then like I felt like I was being accepted. And some of those folks that I was with, they're like, at the time and even still to this day, like great people who always have had the interest in my heart. But by and large, I was trying to impress, people that, didn't really care about, my well-being or anything like that. But that was where my energy was going. And this drinking substance abuse problem that I had then getting into the military, it only exacerbated the issue even further. Yes, like, we got, lean and mean in the military, but on the other side of that, we had a lot of downtime, and the stress of being in certain environments, continue that trend. And you're only I often say this, you're only the sum of your habits and the DNA of who you are at very, like, in your formative years of life. And and then if you continue in those said habits, whether good or bad, that's just going to be your continual behavior. If there's not a change, what's going to happen? My friend Brian Mazza says on the 10,000 team, he says nothing changes if nothing changes, and I love that. And so nothing changed, and that carried me through, and the partying just got intensified throughout that. But I was successful in the military. I've always been successful. To almost to like my own fault. And left the military, got into corporate work.
Let me pause there. How did you get into the military, and the behaviors you said that they increased?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you decide to do that?
Well, I got into the military because I was I passed the right physical fitness test, and it was a low barrier of entry in terms of the job that I was going into. Was going into the infantry in the Marines, and not take anyone, but I didn't have a criminal record or anything like that, so I was brought right in, and I was a stud then. I mean, running fast, doing well in all the physical tests, but I always had this transactional mindset then that, man, I'm crushing it so hard here. I'm going to party so hard here as well. Plus, just what I knew about myself was always part of the issue of continuing to fit in, with people that I'm trying to impress. And like, I had no business like really trying to fit in or feeling like I wasn't good enough, even then at that time. And yet I've now had a pattern of success and leadership but yet that was just part of who I was, and I could never figure that out. It took me the longest time. That's later in the story about figuring out, why I continued to feel like, it wasn't good enough. But we have a lot of downtime in the military, and in some countries where you're deployed, the drinking age is lower to 18 years old, and at that point, it's legal, right, to drink unless you're on a military facility, which then you're subject to the laws of the United States. And it was just that was just what, at the time, what was just known for. It's like you deploy and you work so hard in the field, and then you come back into the barracks or your administrative side of life and just go out and just be a military person out, and you're just trying to you're missing your family, you're dealing with all the stuff that you got going on, but you're also having a ton of fun with the people you're with, and so there's the entertainment aspect of it. And if I had no issues with all the substance abuse and drinking early on in my life, like, man, it was just prime ripe for me to fall even deeper into that, which is how I got there.
Wow. So what happened in between? Well, how was that transition between the Marines and the corporate world? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, I never wanted to leave. I really enjoyed it because I was having success. I wanted to be a pilot, and kids growing up, they had my friends anyways, they had baseball cards, stuff like that. I was collecting Desert Storm cards, like cards of tanks and planes and all this cool stuff. I was just so excited about it. No history of really family in the military or anything like that. I really kind of blazing a trail there. I just loved it, and I wanted to remain in it. I was feeling comfortable with what we were doing. I was progressing pretty well, but I had my metatarsals in my feet, the bones in your feet, stress fractures, and all of them.
Wow.
And it just kind of got worse and worse and worse, and when I was putting on a lot of miles, like running and getting faster, it got to the point to where it would be really difficult to get up in the morning and just get going really fast. And that's what the military is all about. 5 a.m., 5:30, get up, shower, shave. I'm not sure if I can say it.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, that's kind of a common thing to say. Shower, shave, get going, get out, get training, moving, right? I mean, you're hustling so fast, and there are points where, like, my body, my feet would not continue to go, and I was like, what is going on? And it turns out it's kind of a some senses a genetic type thing. Our family is not known having the greatest bone structure in feet, things like that. So I had to hang it up. I couldn't continue, and the girlfriend who I was dating at the time, her dad was an executive for an elevator company, a big one, one of the biggest ones in the world. He's like, well, man, why don't you come sell elevators? And I'm like, I'm trying to be a pilot, leaving the Marines, and want me to come sell elevators, like. And I was like, well, okay, so I went, and actually I couldn't believe, like, this industry. I had no idea. Like, we get into buildings all the time. Like, actually, think about it. The next time you're in a building, try to figure out, how did this elevator even get in this building? So I started figuring that out, and I really, started to love the industry itself. So I was in the construction industry, working with general contractors and architects, property, on the service side, the end user stuff, working with property managers and building owners and stuff like that. And I started to progress within various roles in there and having a lot of success, and they're having a lot of fun. And I started, getting more and more into a mentor role with mentee, like guiding them folks, and a pattern started to really emerge that that's what I really love is working with people. I did that in the Marines, and I was doing that here and working in the elevator industry, and with all that success, so somehow I still carried over all those habits from the military into here, but then it got worse because I was, now certainly legal to consume alcohol. All the networking events.
Oh,
That's a tough one, and that's one of the things we work on all the time in our programs. How we can navigate that.
Wow.
And so there was that plus the relationship that I had getting in, the girlfriend, I ended up becoming single for a while. Now here I was, a young, 24, 25, 26-year-old, making a little bit of money now,
Right.
and trying to get into the dating scene and party life, and so all these friends and but I always had then, the man, am I good enough? Do I need to fit in? Still suppressing memories from early on, coping, and without the structure of the Marines that was holding me together from at least a physical standpoint, then things started to deteriorate for me physically, and it just slowly got worse and worse, but yet you don't see it, yes, over time you just don't notice it, and almost like you're still the same, you're only seeing what you want to believe. And it continued to, it was tough, from a sense of no longer participating in any sort of physical activities, and in the Marines, like you come out and you're like Division I athletes or professionals, you develop this mindset like, man, I'm never going to be out of shape, right? I'm always going to be fit. And gosh, if your habits and your environment doesn't support that, you're subject to your own your own
I call that part entropy.
That's right.
If you're not going up, you're clearly going down by default.
It's in some senses, yeah. So it just that trickled into and then of course getting finding the love of my life, getting married, now having bringing a child into our life, and here I was welcoming a child into our life, 34 years old, and time is just getting more and more tight, as a dad now, trying to, with increased responsibilities at work, and no different than really much of a regular dad out there, it's just, but I always had this thought that, 3 weeks, I'll get it back, and I'm just 3 weeks away from getting it back. I just carried that with me all the time, and
they were always sliding.
And of course, I would try so hard, and that's where those many journeys come from. I try so hard to get it back and crush it, for 3 weeks, and then you wouldn't see me for 3 months.
Wow.
And then, there was, we had our child who was born into our life. I always talk, one of the things I say is motivation is overrated. I get that from, when when you become a dad or a mom, you're always told that your life changes overnight, and next thing you know, you're just like the perfect role model for your children. And you might be the person who would run through a wall or potentially get in front of a train to do anything for your children to keep them safe, perhaps. But you're still the same. You're still the sum of your habits. You're still that same person. And if a child comes into your life and doesn't change your, like, the most precious thing literally on earth, if that doesn't change your behavior, that doesn't motivate you to make a life change, then nothing will. And so that's why I believe motivation is overrated, and we can't rely on it. And it's why small adjustments in lifestyle and habits is ultimately the way to lead you to success. And so our kiddo is born, and I still have the worst of habits, and it's just I'm seeing in a lot of senses now who I've become. Like, the darkness in me is starting to come out, and the childhood trauma is beginning to surface. Wow. Trying to ask the questions of why am I not good enough is surfacing. Where did all my life go is starting to surface. All of these things began to bubble up, and now seeing physically in my own eyes, like, who I've become, both on the outside and now on the inside, that led me into a very, very, very dark place that I don't wish upon anybody. I didn't. There were periods when I didn't think I would see my 40th birthday. Like, that's we in our family history, we have suicides, depression. That's part of who we are. My father and his father and sister, aunts, uncle, uncles that had been in mental institutions since they were 5 years old. Right, this is my family, and I never wanted to be that. And I thought I could break the chain. I was like, for sure I could be that person. Here I am, and at that time that wasn't the case. I had fallen right into that, but worse. It was tough.
So if having your kid did not make the change, what made it?
Well, as there was this time period when I was trying on a pair of pants that I just got. I love wearing comfortable slacks. I just love being comfortable in general. You see me, like, this is like as like loose. This is it. Yeah, this is just like yourself, man. Look very comfortable. Same thing with slacks. So I invested in having a nice pair of slacks, had them just right for me. Okay. And I got these new 38 size pants, and expensive for me anyways. And I'm trying them on, and they're too tight. Too tight, man. And I'm like, my God, I'm going to a size 40. Just got these pants, and wear them, and I'm gonna be uncomfortable. And at that moment, I caught myself in the mirror putting on these pants, and my body's like coming out and all this, and I don't know what it was at that moment. I don't know what it was, man, but something struck me so hard then. It was a showdown with myself in the mirror. It just felt like everything was coming out, and just all. And like, I realized that, like, man, like this, like you're done, Eric, if you don't like take a step, like in a long term one. And that, man, JJ, that moment could have been 15 seconds. It could have. It felt like an eternity, just sitting right there, and that was it. Like after that showdown with myself, I've never had a showdown of that immense magnitude. But I've been here before, though. So much like I've tried, get back on it. So I've done what I've always done. I got my stuff, got it ready, and I walked to the YMCA the next day. And instead of grabbing weights or doing anything that like maybe I was comfortable with, I just got on the treadmill, walked a mile, and sort of just kind of thinking about who I am, what I'm doing, and that mile was tough on the treadmill. And I came home, and it just seemed like for the next several months, things were just aligning a little bit better for me to continue this journey of health. And that's why I believe so much in the environment and the process. Some of that was lucky. Some of that was maybe by design. My wife is a very healthy person. More to her story, as the journey goes on. But she was always trying to, have fresh produce, vegetables around the house. Just never like, again, Mr. 3 weeks, I'm going to get it back. So it's like, no problem. My diet, I was, pizza rolls and 8 ounces of water a day. That was kind of like my nutrition. And eating brown, baked, convenient. It's like, I got no time to eat healthy. Like my body continued to crave what I've always craved, so I'm going to continue to go with that. That's
So,
just the gut
let
connection.
me ask this. This is the part. It sounds to me you had a mirror moment,
Yeah.
right? You had the mirror and
Yeah.
something changed. So it's interesting, between this moment, the mirror moment, and the day after, there was a gap in between. What do you think, or what was your mindset? Because you have been in that position many times, but it sounds that this time you break the pattern. You really broke the chain with, I'm not going to do the same thing that I'm comfortable with, but instead I'm going to go the long mile. I'm going to purge all of this. What was your mindset in that moment?
Yeah.
In that gap?
Part of it was that, just that my pure physical state. And now like 260 pounds, and just putting on shoes, socks, shorts, everything's uncomfortable, and I was hardly even in a state to grab dumbbells and be even like comfortable even in the gym environment. So there's that anecdotal part of it, but then it was just a matter of something shook me so hard that I needed to continue to process what I was thinking the day before, and being in the gym with my headphones on allowed me to walk through those steps in my mind as to like how I have gotten here. And that's all I wanted to do, was to process the mental piece of my journey getting to this point. And I did not want to just sweat it out, or I did not want to, cope in other ways, right? Push it out in that way. I just wanted to just think about it, because I was just so shook. I never felt what I felt that day in the mirror. And I needed to work through it any way I could, to my own capacity anyway. So it's a combination of just pure, my physical state, as well as just wanting to walk through the, what I was feeling and how that was impacting my life. Why I did what I did, just walked on the treadmill versus grabbing something.
Wow. So it's a combination of things. And it's interesting that you mentioned that. A few weeks ago, I was at a Tony Robbins event, and he tells the story of he felt so constrained, so out of alignment, that he simply put his stuff aside and started running and running and running and running, and he was not gonna stop until he felt he had like released from many things. That's one of the things. And then we have another guest in the show. His name is Gabriel Roar. He's biocodification. Oh, I'm trying to forget to remember exactly what is his title in English, because in Spanish it's kind of different. But he was telling how parts of his childhood trauma got released one day after a session that he had. He started running. He said the session did not work. The day after he was running, and suddenly it came to the realization. So it sounds that in your case, it's the combination of that moment and the long mile, because you have run so many times. What was different this time? It was something different.
Yes, it very much was different. And yeah, and I didn't even get into therapy work until probably about 6-8 months later into the journey to start processing that. And this is what I learned in my own journey as to why so many things fail so much when you're trying to adjust your life is just folks tend to just make it so complicated early on, and it doesn't need to be complicated. And they try to calculate it, where it's like it's gonna be X is going to produce Y. But I still had, even in the beginning part of walking in that mile on the treadmill, like I'm still, it's not like everything changed, right? I'm still the same person. Still drank a lot. I had a huge problem with alcohol for really 6, 7, 8 months into it, and then that's when it finally started to walk back at that time frame when I started to see the change in myself, and then working with a therapist. And one of the just sort of the surface level issues that I was dealing with still was that I still made things transactional, right? So because I exercised, I felt like that I had earned, the stuff that I was gonna eat, and that continued to create a bad relationship with food. I started categorizing things as good food and bad food, and not just nourishment. And it was a toll on me. And it didn't allow me to really kind of create a comfortable lifestyle. I felt like I was just changing, even in this early part of this journey. And another thing that almost created an event where perhaps you and I wouldn't even be sitting here right now is that in the second month of working through this, I decided to take on this 30-day challenge of like a modified Whole30. A part of it was no drinking for 30 days. And I did it because it was like in honor of my late mom, to see if I could do it for her. And I did it, actually, probably the first time in 25 years that I didn't drink for 30 days. I think like at most, like maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks. It's probably as far as I've gotten before. But I did it. But I restricted so hard, both on, eliminating sugars, processed foods, alcohol, that out of the 30-day gate, I was just like, bring it, it's just, I just like a fire hose, just brought it right back. And that was a very early on lesson that we now apply in our programs, quite a bit. Is like, I do not like anything restriction. The only thing that really we tend to talk about restricting is perhaps sugar. And if there's a true alcohol addiction problem, then that's a little bit outside of our scope of practice, and we do what we can on the other aspects and give them recommendations on how they could get help. But outside of that, restriction is not the answer. All these diets, they're all for a very specific purpose that can get you in a short-term position, which is training for something, an athlete, bodybuilder, working towards an event. You have a particular protocol within your body that, inflammation, something like that, to where you need to get on a very specific diet or circumstance to adjust for that. But that's a short-term thing. But for a general lifestyle, it's tough, right? You look at the American calendar, and we have the holiday period at the end of the year. We got the July 4th, and we have spring break. And those events are all like in a spot that, that's right, man.
Context.
That's right. It's and folks fall right within that all the time, and like, okay, I'm gonna cycle back here. I'm gonna get better after this.
Wow.
And then it's like the summer.
Thought about that.
And it's just, you just fall out. You ramp up so hard to get ready for the summer. You want to be at the pool and comfortable with your shirt off and stuff like that. And yeah, that's amazing. Everyone should feel comfortable. But then school kicks in and you're back, and you're just back to the old lifestyle of who you were before, because you just didn't really adjust your lifestyle to make long-term changes. You just trained for the summer event, your own event. And you get into the holidays, and next thing you know, it's January, and the first thing people do is, that's it, I'm making a change. New Year's resolutions, dry January, the whole thing. And it never works. Never works. Multiple clinics, reputable clinics like Cleveland, releasing their data every year in terms of the folks who make these changes and then gain all this weight back is mid 80s, 90s in some studies, 85, 90, 95% of people, of all the journeys. I mean, that's almost 100% of you make this change and then you gain it all back. And so, number one, that's just tough as it is, but then you tack on the mental aspect, and that might be worse than all, especially folks who go through serious changes, losing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 plus pounds. And what it takes to do that and then gain it all back.
Oh my God. That's a punch to self-esteem.
To your soul. I mean, most folks don't recover from that. Like, just don't have it in them to do it again.
Now I understand that is part of why you guys at Champ City drive people to become resilient, right?
Yeah. It's really about understanding, if we're coping with food or in other ways, why is that? And it's not where you specifically fell down, but we need to look at what got you to begin, where did you start stumbling, right? And these could be repeated triggers, right? Understanding that, and oftentimes it's unburied that it's a very specific person in a work environment or a very specific thing that happens in their social circle that triggers folks into certain things. And the repeatable behavior of what has always worked before is going to continue to happen. So understanding things like that, not pushing yourself too hard and restricting, coming in thinking, keto diet, low carb diet, all these types of different diets. And it's not that. In fact, we're going to be focusing on eating a lot of food. And it's not restriction, it's addition. Just going to focus on whole foods. That's it. So real food. Find out what your energy output is for the day. That's fairly easy to understand. What your total daily energy expenditure is to sustain you with all your walking, everything all in. Whether it's 2,500 calories or 3,000 or 3,500, if you're a large person, and we're going to try to eat that much food to have the energy to continue to with a program. So like, folks will work out so hard and push themselves so hard. They're burning 4,000, 4,500, 5,000 calories a day. Yet eating like birds, that's just never going to sustain itself.
Right.
And so, to answer your question, yeah, we coach folks to understand that in order to continue and a well-rounded program, we got to have the energy to match for it, or we have to properly recover. And I put nutrition in that recovery bucket. So, amen.
Nice. So we went from past to present, and let's go back a little bit in time, because it sounds that once you started your personal transformation, that was the kickstart for what it is now, Champ City. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I made these changes and got down to 189 pounds. Probably about 260 to 189. So I was really lean at that point. Put on a couple more pounds after that, and I felt like I was a really healthy 195 pounds. I'm like, Dad, I'm like, I got it. I got to pay this forward. Like, what are the things? I was thinking dads and veterans early on. And how can I didn't want to work in a gym. And I didn't have any experience in online training or anything like that. I didn't even know that could be an impact. But I wanted to do something different. Like, what are the pain points? And oftentimes it's with dads, just too busy to get to the gym itself. I just can't do it. I don't have enough time to do that. And also with dads and veterans, sometimes like they're almost embarrassed, right? Ashamed of who they are, no self-love for themselves, and they just don't even want to subject themselves to that environment, right? So not even give themselves a fighting chance. And so I'm like, okay, so what can I do? And so that I created this mobile gym on wheels that I could tow behind my truck. And that's what you see in all the Instagram videos. It's just this transformer, like squat racks come out of this trailer. I'm bringing fitness to the doors of other folks, right? To, taking the excuse out, no time, I'm coming to your doorstep with this gym. And
like, I'm bringing all of this, you bring the sweat.
That's it. You bring, yep. You just stay hydrated and be ready. I'm coming. And so that's kind of how Champ City was born, with that idea. And I was like, I was in it, and we were having a lot of success going to people's doors, houses, businesses, parks, meeting them where they are, loving it. Folks are having a good time. And I was about 4 or 5 months, 4 or 5 months of, at least maybe 6, of preparing for that moment. Got to this moment, started working it, and then 2 weeks to stop the spread came about, and I parked the mobile gym in the driveway where you see it today. It hasn't moved a millimeter since.
Because of COVID.
Hasn't moved a millimeter since. Yeah. And so with the 2 weeks to stop the spread, I was tired, man, at that point, right? Because I'm breaking down a gym like 4 or 5 times a day. Like, wow, okay, plus my own training and everything I was doing to stay healthy, figuring, navigating how to, begin this business. I was tired, and I used that as time. I called all the clients, guys, like, let's adhere to the rules. So what's going on? Maybe I could have gotten around it. It's such a unique thing, we weren't really a gym, but decided to take a break. It's like let's give it a week, 2 weeks, and we'll regroup. And and ultimately it just never came back to that. Like no one really felt comfortable being in a gym environment, and I probably could have, at one point really gotten around those rules, and really made like a fortune, like being the only gym in town.
Right.
People were dying, like couldn't find people working out with center blocks and anything they could to create resistance. And here I was with this mobile gym, like I could have been, this hero. But something was, preventing me from just hooking it back up in the truck and really making that happen. And there's this one guy who kept asking me through social media, like, hey, do you have an online program? And I like to that I didn't know like how to make it, how to facilitate it, nothing. But I found some training software, signed up. It's called Trainerize, and I called him. I was like, you know what, man, got an online program. Let's see what we can do. Brought him on board, wrote him a program, talked to him, and he was my only client. And it was like Jerry Maguire. It was like we talked all the time, and I was so invested into seeing him succeed. And gosh, he had amazing results, and it was working. Looking back at what we did then, it was, my goodness, I'm embarrassed almost at like what I was offering from at that standpoint, but yet he had such great results from it. And at that point, I realized, like many other trainers out there, that the online model can work if you can find a way to connect with them and be involved in their wellness, more frequently versus that self-service type of stuff. And he wrote a good review. And that was it, man. We started picking up folks left and right, and
that's what he found you through social media.
Through social media, yeah, he found it through social media, and the account at the time was still a very young account. But I started telling the story a little bit. I've gotten much more open, over the years.
About more authentic.
But got much more authentic about how I got to where I got to. But even in the early stages, I was still kind of showing some before and after stuff, and talking about how it was ultimately getting away from processed food and reducing alcohol that made the change really happen long term. So he really liked that type of coaching, thinking long term sustainability, and but he asked me for probably 6 months, ever since I opened the account, you got an online program. I finally took him up on it.
Program.
Yeah. So that's how Champ City was born, and we now we coach folks on every continent on earth.
Yeah, and your programs are like you said, they are simple and they are effective, to the point that my theory is that that program is working for you when you start cursing your coach in the middle of the workout.
Yeah, it was so cool that you came through it and came through one of our challenges. Man, that was really awesome that you did that. Yeah, it's I have probably made over 3,000 workouts up to this point now, with all the custom folks coming through. Every program is designed for them to a letter. But I always knew that Champ City needed to be much more than just a fitness offering. And because with the changes that I had, it's all things health. For vibrant health, it's got to be looking at dietary intake. It's got to be looking at your habits. It's got to be looking at your overall well-being. It's got to be looking at your mental fitness, your mental health, It's got to be all these things, and then even in the professional work of and that's our next phase of the business is building a community of medical providers such as therapists and physicians and things like that, where we can be a full holistic one-stop shop practice. And that's always been the vision since day one, knowing that that's what it took for me to come all the way around was, and it's not anything challenging or hard. It's just a matter of looking at those different buckets of your life, with the exception of maybe some professional help, therapy. That's outside of what is generally considered to be a costly sort of endeavor, or if there's a medical provider involved from a physician doing tests and things like that. But outside of that, like, man, nutrition still got to come in. Exercising, working on what's going on inside our brains. That's everyday life, right? Just gonna shape it a certain way to where it makes sense for you.
Cool. Let me proceed with some rapid fire questions.
Yeah, man.
Okay, I have some from the audience. So the first one is, okay, Eric, how to avoid getting injured when you're working back your way to work out?
First thing I would do is probably do some sort of like benchmark assessment.
Okay.
Understanding like what your mobility is, what your flexibility is. Put your camera in the corner, set it up on something on a tripod if you have it. Film yourself, see where you're at. Understand that you might not be the person that you were at 18, 20 years old. So really going through that, understanding where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. Certainly adequately, we have to warm up, prevent injuries, and it's not static stretching, but look to dynamic movements.
Cool.
Get your body heated up, and then decompressing afterwards, stretch afterwards. So important. Perfect.
Nice. That was the first one. The second one, Eric, what is the mind-muscle connection?
Yeah. So that is when we're doing a particular exercise, right? You could think about it all the time. When you're exercising and you're not really feeling like what is happening, right? It's like, is this even working? Like, it happens all the time. And it's because your mind is not necessarily engaged into the muscle itself. It's not understanding the intent of that particular exercise. And so if you do that, if you understand that what the intent of the exercise, okay, is this a hamstring strengthening exercise? Is this a quad exercise? Is this a biceps, right? But definitely on the leg side of things, is this a glute focused exercise? If we are not actively focusing on the muscle that is being trained, there's a good chance that we may be inefficient with it to start. Right? We could probably get more out of it by doing in less time and doing less if we were more properly engaged in it. But it'll kind of force you to hone in on your form with that. So really think about it. Like, think about if it's a glute exercise, think about your glutes firing off, right? And they should be working. They should be engaged. And if you do that, that's where it comes. Yep.
Great, thank you. Next one. This one comes from me. I'm not a student only of your workouts, but also of your marketing. So what would you say, simple strategies that you could suggest for people that are trying to organically grow their audience?
I mean, first and foremost is to be as authentic to yourself and to your audience as humanly possible. If you are the story, the more of you that is seen, the better it is. Folks are smart, man, and they know what's real and what's not real. But then also understanding, okay, the fitness space is just wide open. I mean, there's so many folks out there. What specifically about you is a little bit maybe unique about your offering. And if you can't really quite think of something specific to what's unique about you, then focus on exactly how you could be a better storyteller. Because I think the folks who are storytellers, who are authentic, or they are just truly just naturally gifted people, like, and they're, the celebrities, the world class athletes. I mean, folks are going to follow, like, they market themselves, but they still have to work for it like a crazy person, like, to continue the growth. So man, I would say, JJ, that being ultra authentic is key to the endeavors. And how would you want to interpret it? Like, if you were trying to buy from you, like, would you buy from your own self?
Wow.
And if the answer is no, then man, like, gotta change tactics.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Next one. What is the walk it back method?
All right. So that comes from alcohol consumption, and some folks like thinks I they have turned it into something that is known as like a scientific term. And it's not. It's just something that I just thought of one day. But it comes to one of the hardest things that I had to go through was learning how to drink less and less and less. And I finally decided, after all the many failed attempts of going 30 days, 2 weeks, trying different liquors, beers, wines, all this stuff, it was still the same. I was still consuming X amount of drinks a week, and it was a lot. So I eventually, like, kind of calculated up about, on average, what it was per week, and each week I just shaved a little bit off, and that was my goal. And if it was like 50, down to, okay, next week is gonna be 45, all the way down to where I am today. But that's the walk it back method, that instead of just eliminating it, restricting it altogether, I just took a little bit off at a time. That was like my steady small goal that I had. And once I got everything was aligning with it, with physical exercise, nourishment, changes were happening in the body. I was then at that point seeing a therapist to work on the inner child stuff, to unlock, like, what, I am good enough, right? And all that was kind of clicking, and those little goals just kept me going. I walked it back over time.
That's what I love from your story, because even though it started with that mirror moment, the change was placed not in this iconic Hollywood-esque style that it happens from now on. No. You did it progressively, right?
Yeah.
I think that is fascinating, and that's also inspiring for other people that may have the same problems or similar problems.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this other question: what would the current Eric tell the Eric 10 years ago?
Man, that is an awesome question. I would somehow find a way to convince him, let him know that, man, you are good enough, man. You got nothing to prove, man. People love you. I'd convince him to see someone, for help early on. And I would advise that to anyone. If resources allow, seek help. Especially if that's a history in your family, don't think that you can outrun it just because you have the will to do so. If it's in DNA and genetically part of who you are, and if you're following in that same path, like, you're setting yourself up for something bad. So that's what I would tell myself, probably more than anything else. Say, hey, you're gonna be okay, but you need to learn right now that you're good enough.
And what would the Eric 10 years in the future would tell this one?
That's where I've been thinking for many years. Now it's just the journey begins. Like, what do I need to know when I'm 50? And I turned 40 now at April 30th. By the way, man, you're invited to the 40th thing. I got a fun challenge coming up for April. But man, it would be working probably a lot less. One of the studies I follow all the time is what folks say at end of life, and the number one thing it's as old as time. What folks say and why we can't buck this trend is I don't know. They say I wish I would have just worked less, done more. So I have to constantly remind myself that the work is always going to be there. And even right now, as I'm in this spot of where we're trying to just hold on as we grow, that report, that task, that anything that you're doing right now is a good chance that is not going to impact detrimentally what's going to happen right now, even tomorrow, probably not even next week. So shut it down. Enjoy the family. That's what I think my 50-year-old would tell myself right now. And if I get to 50 and I'm watching this over again, and if I'm not listening to your advice, man, I'm archiving this. I'm gonna put it on a disc and I'm gonna bury it, and I'm gonna pick it up in 10 years. And I better have listened to my own advice, worked less. And if I did, man, then you're coming to my 50th birthday.
Thank you. I have to remind you. Yeah. Just in case this is a tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
So going back into the family side, what is this project that you have with your kid? I know you have a very interesting project.
Yeah. So we it's not really necessarily a project. And correct me if I'm maybe I'm understanding something a little bit different than what you're saying here, but it's my kiddo asks me all the time, right? Like 6-year-olds do, she's about to be 7. What they do is, Daddy, can we do this? Can we do that? Like, watch this, what? And I now have a rule that whatever she asks me to do, I just do it. Even if it's 15, 30 seconds, a minute, like I just say yes, and I do it. That helps me continue to be involved with her as much as possible versus like in a minute, just give me a minute. I'm not sure if that was unless you picked up something else.
I picked that you have an email pro.
Oh, okay, yeah. I see. So this is one of the cool things that I did, even in my red shorts days, right? The red shorts, blue shorts guy. I opened up an email account for our girl when she was born, and I've been journaling to her every day now for 6 years, and I talk about the big things, birthdays and stuff like that, but I also the little things along the way. It's like first time that she'd seen a duck and how it smiled, but how that related to our relationship, like what that meant for me. And when she turns 18, I'm gonna give her the password, and she'll have this chronological story of our life together, and she'll be able to search it too, in an email format, but it's me writing to her, and it's pretty awesome.
That is beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And you made me think about this now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe not having the kid or having a kid does not motivate people to change. Nevertheless, in your case, it was actually the trigger, but in a different time scale, because now it sounds that you were healing this inner trauma like I had, likewise, I'm not enough. But for your kid, you are more than enough. I'm just never gonna let you forget that. Yeah, that's that's an interesting way to think about it, man. I've never actually thought through it like that, but and I appreciate that. Thank you. No, thank you. It was beautiful. Last few questions, because I know we have just a few minutes. Likewise, rapid fire questions. What are the habits in your daily routine that make the best version of yourself?
The best, well, two things. One, it's at night. I firmly believe, especially if you're trying to find a way to be consistent where there is no consistency, is to have a nighttime routine. Still to this day, about 7 p.m., like either a mental trigger will go off, or if I'm wearing my watch, I'll get buzzed at 7 p.m. just to remind me that this is the wind down time. And I follow it like clockwork, and it's no longer work; it's just life. But it's understanding what I'm eating the next day, especially in the early days. Understanding exactly what I'm eating, make sure I'm set up for breakfast, lay out my clothes, begin shutting down all the blue light, and all of this allows me to follow that pattern. And more often than not, after putting the kiddo to bed, a little time with the wife, I'm off in dreamland 9:30, and that's a beautiful place to be. So I can get up at 5. The other habit would be, and this might be the biggest of all in terms of the impact, is when I wake up, old me would instantly get engaged into like what I thought life needed from me, what work needed from me, and it would consume me. And I'm never getting, as busy dads, like we have such small windows of opportunity for self-care. And I get up, grab my water, go outside, and I set intentions, light meditation, think about my day. I intend to do these things. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then I go right into the workout, right into it. And after I'm done with that, then I start checking my phone, email, stuff like that. Maybe see what's happening with social media. But doing that habit of waking up, putting the clothes on that I laid out the night before instantly, going right outside, and not allowing work to consume me is probably one of the biggest ones of all.
Thank you. What are your mentors or role models?
Yeah. So I have a core group of fitness minded individuals that I've now all met, in real life, which is awesome. Some Instagram pals, like, if you're not following them, man, Cameron A. House is an incredible dude. Cameron Horn is an incredible human being, kettlebell master. Colin. Then there's another Cam. I call them my 3 Cams. We have this like core group. Like these guys like keep me going, and then my entire 10,000 team of athletes. I mean, these are some serious athletes. 10,000 is the apparel that I wear. These are some of these guys, fastest recorded marathon ever run in the United States ever, and half. Professional MMA fighters, former football players. I mean, these are serious athletes, Ironmans, world record holders, and all kinds of different things. And then there's me, this dad, as part of this group. And to this day, I'm not even sure how I got there. And still there. But those guys are awesome. I love the 10,000 group. They keep me locked in. So those athletes on the physical side of things, and then on the internal, some of the the mental stuff that I really got to think my therapist is up there now as like a mentor of who I am. And my brother is one of those people. He's 3 years younger than I am, but he knows me better than anyone, except for maybe my therapist. But if I'm ever, he can call out my BS like anyone. We all need that person in our life.
Yeah.
Maybe way off course, man. So those are the people.
Nice. Thank you. I would say the 4th guest that says my brother.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Cool.
For sure he's going to watch this.
Yeah, he will.
So, Eric, where can people find you on the internet?
And you can start with looking at my Instagram at at Champ City ATX. Champ is my last name. It's where that came from, and you can find me there. In there's I have a link tree that sends you to all the places where I'm at, and that's always the easiest place. If you don't have a social media account, just champcity.com, and get from there, get in contact, send me a message. I try to be as active as I possibly can in all my direct messages as much as I can. Keep up with there. Of course, if you send messages through the website, I try to be as available as I possibly can.
Perfect.
Amen.
And we're gonna put all of those notes in the episode notes, so no worries.
Appreciate that. Yeah, man.
And last question, actually, it is: if you could leave the audience with a question to expand their mind, to open up their minds, what would that question be?
If you're struggling, I'll let you know about a feeling that the power of a total life transformation, physically and mentally. Going through that, it has no equal. There's and knowing that, why wouldn't you want to experience that feeling for yourself? Understand that it just can't be done in one area. We can't just try to be the physically most fit people.
Right, it has to be integral.
It's got to be holistic. It's got to be integral. So I'll challenge you with that is to why wouldn't you want to try to unlock that for you?
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any last comments before we sign off?
I appreciate you having me on, man. I love sharing the story, because it's such a relatable one, because it's not unique. If I can do it, and many others that we've coached can do it, anyone can. And it's not too late. You may not be able to become, a model on a magazine cover. Some of that's going to be genetical potential. And I realize that now I have great genetics. So don't compare yourself to others. You just can't. But if you want to feel the best you ever had and being truly connected internally, where you feel at peace with yourself, it's never too late for that. Ever.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, man.
And we're going to end up today's episode in that comment. Like always, thank you very much for following us in Optimizandome or Optimizing Me. Today we had Eric Champ from Champ City with us here in Austin, Texas. If you like this interview, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with your contacts. By the way, we are one of the first video blogs or video podcasts on Spotify, so share that news with your friends and family. Likewise, it was my pleasure. My name is jjruescas, and we'll see you on the next episode. By the way, before I forget, thanks to Pure Texas Yoga for the space. Beautiful space. Let's come check out this place another time. Now I'll tell you bye. Keep optimizing, guys.